Christine Bossler is an independent metalsmith and jeweler living in Detroit. Her eclectic pieces have caught the eye of locals and people all over the world. We went out and visited her in her home studio where she was in production on Cufflinks.
I'm from the east side of Detroit, East English Village neighborhood over by Caju Cafe and that side of town. My mom, growing up, was we're gonna make it from scratch around the house. We made wrapping paper, we made our curtains, we made our clothes, we cooked from scratch. So I guess it was always kind of there in the background. I find everything in the process and the material. Looking at something like this, just a pile full of little nothing and seeing a possibility in it, that to me is like probably the most rewarding thing. Although I really enjoy watching how people interact with my work and knowing that it's all handmade and that the metal is clean and pure. It's not plated, plastic, or glass. It's real. Those things just make me really happy to know that I can do it and that people like it. A lot of stuff that I do has recycled components, and I will use broken plates from neighbors, bricks found from my yard, rusted metal that I find on the street, a whole variety of sources. It literally is looking at textures and pattern and rearranging spikes, little pokey texture, and playing with process, drilling holes, filing little spikes, soldering them all in there, playing with them between straight and curved. I'm in Boston Edison, Detroit. Technically I'm south of Boston Edison, but it's still part of the neighborhood. I spend all my time here. I think it's a perseverance that you see in the streets and in the neighborhoods that really is the inspiration in the studio. Being your own business person isn't easy. Being an artist isn't easy, and yeah, it's kind of a luxury, you know, to be able to have the opportunity to work for yourself. And to me, looking at people on the block and the struggles they're going through, it reminds me how lucky I am to keep pushing. There's a lot of supporting industry here. Being that we are a manufacturing town, the history of the city being so deep in manufacturing, I like working recycled metals. I think people like that. I think people like the recycled material and that I try to be clean and ethical. And mining's a really dirty process. There's so much floating around that's being recycled all the time. If there was a need, that would be another story, but there really isn't. To know that I'm putting wedding rings on fingers and that those rings are going to be there probably for the rest of their lives. Knowing that you're a major part of some sort of ceremony, a commitment ceremony or a wedding ceremony, is pretty neat. I've been really enjoying the cufflinks. There's a lot of process involved. There's a lot of steps. All right, so we're gonna get started here. The first thing we do when we're making cufflinks, or when I make cufflinks, is to build out the wall section, which is this part right in here, or on this part right in here. I'm constantly thinking in my head, like, how can I refine this and make it better? And I really like doing the different moving components. For me, that's a really neat aspect. So what we're doing is we're fitting the hinges. So now we're sending the wire through, and that's going to be what makes all the joints pivot. I work on these cufflinks from stock, so we're looking at pre-made wire. Like this is where we're going to start, and we're going to make a whole bunch of different components. We're going to wrap the walls and cut the walls open and then solder them together, and then we're going to cut some discs for the base, and then we'll stamp them with the hallmarks so that everybody knows that it's sterling silver, and it'll have my maker's mark, and I like to include a Detroit mark on it so they know where everything's from. After that, we'll solder the walls to the base and then turn them over and solder a little peg on to connect the arm hardware. And then we'll turn around and make all the arm hardware and the swivels and then clean them up. So this is it. This is, you know, it before we figure out what we're inserting. It could be a lot of things. I have a drawer full of things over here for us to look at if you want. Bicycle tires, records, bricks, slate, sandstone, agate, ceramic. If you can do it here, you can do it anywhere. Detroit is, in my mind, some of the harshest critics. Like they will tell you if what you're making is bad. They'll tell you if it doesn't fit. They'll tell you how you should have done it. So if you can make your business work here, you know you're doing something right. You can do it anywhere you want. Outside my small jewelry business, I do make larger one-of-a-kind pieces for the runway and different types of different scenarios. And a lot of that work tends to look at fashion in a critical way. I think it's good for everybody to take a look and see what they wear and why they wear it and how that applies to our culture now and previous to, and other cultures, how it's related.
To find out more about Christine Bossler and all the artists featured here today, head to DetroitPerforms.org.